Hello everyone, welcome to Another Day in the Car. I'm Jules, and today we're talking about Gabby Petito, a 22-year-old woman who did not make it home from a road trip. Gabby and her boyfriend slash fiance Brian, who's 23 years old, began their road trip on July 2nd in Blue Point, New York, where Gabby's parents live. Their plan was to check out the national parks and eventually end up in Oregon for Halloween to stay with some friends. This is a couple that has been together for 2 years. They've been on another road trip together. This time they were planning on van lifing it. Last time they were doing Airbnbs. They were posting to their Instagrams, and they even started a YouTube channel. From their posts on Instagram, it looks glamorous and really beautiful. It looks like a beautiful experience. But the pictures are pretty. Road tripping sometimes is not. Sometimes it gets icky. Sometimes you get sweaty. Sometimes you get irritated. Sometimes things just don't go the way you plan for them to go. And I've been looking at their vehicle setup, and it looks like they really don't have very much in the way of insulation or ventilation, and I'm not sure that the bed setup is that practical, comfortable for being stuck in the van. Like, for instance, if it rained and you were stuck inside for a while. I saw the videos of them camping, and in one, it's raining, and Gabby's laughing to the camera, talking about how tough it is with the wind blowing and everything in the rain. And she's got her hands on the sides of her tent, saying that she's been having to pose like that for a while because the wind's blowing the tent in on her. And the thing is, if it's raining, you don't touch the sides of your tent because that causes the water to come in. And believe me, stuff that's touching the sides of the tent gets wet. So that kind of leads me to think that they were trying to have this beautiful, pretty, larger-than-life life on social media. Sometimes when real life doesn't meet up to those expectations, things can get disappointing and relationships can get strained. Which leads us to August 12th, where some nice pictures in Moab were posted by Gabby on her Instagram, and everything's looking perfect. But it turns out that on that date, they also had an altercation of sorts with each other and an encounter with law enforcement. By reading the police report, we discover that the witness, Christopher, whose last name's redacted, reported seeing a male, later identified as Brian Laundrie, and a female, later identified as Gabby Petito, arguing over a phone. Christopher stated that when Brian got into the van, Christopher saw what appeared to him to be Gabrielle hitting Brian in the arm and then climbing through the driver's window as if Brian had locked her out and she was trying to find a way in. So the officer eventually found the van, and it was speeding. It was going 45 miles per hour in a 15 mile per hour speed zone. The officer activated his lights to initiate a traffic stop, and then the van crossed the double yellow dividing line in lane 1, merged into lane 2, and then it abruptly swerved to the right. And when the vehicle swerved, both the front and rear passenger side wheels hit the curb. When the officer approached the vehicle, he saw the only occupants of the vehicle were Gabrielle and Brian. Gabrielle was in the passenger seat crying uncontrollably. The officer asked Gabrielle to get out of the vehicle so that he could speak with her. She told the officer that she suffers from a redacted condition with another redacted condition, which later on it turns out the second condition is anxiety. And she said that combined with little arguments that she and Brian had been having that day, she was struggling with her mental health. And then she said that when she saw the lights, she hit Brian in the arm to get his attention, which caused him to hit the curb. And the officer asked her if it was her intention to hurt Brian, and she said that she did not intend to hurt him, but just wanted to get his attention. And at no point in the investigation did Gabrielle ever stop crying, breathing heavily, or composing sentences without needing to wipe away tears, and wipe her nose, or rub her knees with her hands. So she was agitated. And then the officer went to go speak to Brian, And Brian said that they both suffer from anxiety, but Gabrielle's anxiety is more advanced than his. Issues between the two of them had been building up over the last few days, and that caused them to argue more than usual. And he said that neither he nor Gabrielle take medication for their anxiety, and Brian explained that they've been traveling together for the last few months, and that time spent that way created emotional strain between them and increased their number of arguments, and that while they were arguing in town, he had attempted to separate them by suggesting to her that she should go for a walk so they could both calm their emotions. And Gabrielle went into a manic state, and she thought he was going to leave her in Moab without a ride, so she went to slap him, and as she started to swing, he pushed her away to avoid the slap, and as a result, she went off balance, but she caught his face with her fingers, causing scratches. And then Brian said that when he had seen the officer's lights behind him in the vehicle, he thought that Gabby had grabbed the wheel of the van and pulled it, causing the van to hit the curb. The officer observed scratches on Brian's arm, and when he asked them about them, he guessed that it must have happened when Gabby was trying to get his attention about the officer being behind them with the lights on. Due to the differences of what Gabby was saying, the officer concluded that she was confused in her emotional state. And so he decided that this was a mental health crisis. He decided that the couple needed to spend some time apart from each other. So he transported Brian to a hotel, which is a safe haven. And he suggested that they shouldn't contact each other on their cell phones that night. The couple didn't want to be split up. The couple didn't want charges pressed on anybody. They professed their love for each other and told him that they were engaged and such. He told them just to spend the night apart from each other and that they could meet up later. And that was that. So that situation lets me know that things were kind of unraveling on this road trip. It was not going as well as their pictures tended to suggest. Then we know that on August 21st, they were in Salt Lake City, and Gabby spoke to her dad on the phone and said that she had no Wi-Fi, and he ended up sending Uber Eats for her and Brian. That was August 21st. Then on August 24th, the couple was seen leaving a Salt Lake City motel together, and the plan was they were going to go to Grand Teton and then to Yellowstone, but on the 24th or 25th, she made her last video call with her mom and talked, and her mom said that she seemed all right at that time, but that the mom was getting the impression that she didn't know where the relationship was going with Brian. And then the mom assumed, since she didn't hear from Gabby for a couple days, and that then she was just getting a lot of text messages, she assumed that they just had spotty connections. On the 30th, she got a text from Gabby that she did not know if it was from Gabby or not. It just said that there was no service in Yellowstone. And since she usually heard from Gabby, but there was no more social media posts after August 25th, she started getting worried. She tried to get in touch with Brian. Brian didn't answer. She called Brian's mom. Brian's mom didn't answer. Finally, on September 11th, she got a hold of the police in Brian's town in Florida and found out that Gabby's van was at Brian's parents' house, and police took the van into custody. Gabby's mom made a missing persons report. Brian still has not spoken out, has not talked to Gabby's parents, has not made any reports of her being missing, and has an attorney who made the following statement. Many people are wondering why Mr. Laundrie would not make a statement or speak with law enforcement in the face of Ms. Petito's absence. In my experience, intimate partners are often the first person law enforcement focuses their attention on in cases like this, and the warning that any statement made will be used against you is true, regardless of whether my client had anything to do with Ms. Petito's disappearance. As such, on the advice of counsel, Mr. Laundrie is not speaking on the matter. I have been informed that the Northport, Florida police have named Brian Laundrie as a person of interest in this matter. This formality has not really changed the circumstances of Mr. Laundrie being the focus and attention of law enforcement, and Mr. Laundrie will continue to remain silent on the advice of counsel. things can get complicated on the road. It's not always, the beautiful dream vacation. And that reminds me of an Oscar Wilde quote. They've promised that dreams can come true, but forgot to mention that nightmares are dreams too. Thank you for watching Another Day in the Car with Jules.